This is the heart of the matter with Dr. Carol. For such a time as this, a heart to serve. Hello and welcome back. Thank you for coming with me on this journey. In the last episode, I shared something that was deeply personal. I asked a question that may have sounded unusual at first. What's a big car got to do with a big heart attack? And in many ways, that episode was about the road that led me here. The drive, the ambition, the resilience, the pressure, the pace, the story behind the car. But today, I want to take you into the moment itself, not the metaphor, not the build-up, but the actual event. The day my life changed. The day I stopped being the doctor telling other people to pay attention to their symptoms and became the woman in the car trying to work out whether she was dying. There are moments in life that divide your story into two parts, before and after. For me, this was one of them. Before the heart attack and after the heart attack. And yet the strange thing is that today began like any other day. There was no dramatic warning, no thunder in the sky, no voice from heaven saying, "Carol, slow down." Just an ordinary day, a working day, a day with plans, a day with responsibilities, a day that seemed entirely unremarkable until it wasn't. It was the 22nd of January 2018, just under 3 weeks before my 49th birthday. And as far as I knew, my heart was in good condition. In fact, not just good, excellent. I had none of the usual risk factors people associate with heart disease. No smoking history, no alcohol, no drugs, no diabetes, no high blood pressure, no known family history of coronary heart disease. My cholesterol was normal. I exercised. I was active. I worked hard. I had a normal Q risk score. I had every reason to believe that my little heart would serve me faithfully for decades to come. I fully intended to grow old well. I had plans, dreams, visions of taking future grandchildren to Jamaica one day, spoiling them beautifully, making memories, then joyfully returning them to their parents afterwards. I saw life ahead of me, not life interrupted. Certainly not by a heart attack. And yet, that afternoon, as I was about to leave work, I noticed something. A slight discomfort. Not even in the center of my chest at first. It felt more like indigestion. A discomfort in the upper abdomen, the epigastrium, as we would call it medically. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would make headlines in your mind. Just enough to notice, not enough to alarm. At least, not at first. I remember thinking, oh, it's probably because I'm fasting today. I haven't eaten. I'll break my fast before my next shift starts later. So I left work, got into my car and started driving home. I called home using the Bluetooth in the car just to confirm I was on my way. Ordinary, routine, nothing unusual. Then I remembered that my friend Dr. Tracy had been waiting to speak to me. She had been up after a night shift at the hospital. Now, anybody who has worked in medicine understands what that means. after a hospital night shift, you're tired in your bones. The kind of tiredness that reaches beyond sleepiness and settles into your whole body. So the fact that she had waited up for me made me think something must really matter. I called her and we started talking. But while we were speaking, I realized that the indigestion had shifted. It had moved slightly. Now it was in the center of my chest. Still not what I would have called pain. Not yet. Just a discomfort, a slight pressure, a sense that something wasn't quite right. And because I'm a doctor, I did what doctors do. I started assessing, albeit in my mind, observing, classifying, measuring, without even realizing. I said to her, Trace, I've never had chest pain before, but I have this discomfort in my chest. Just telling you in case anything happens, I said lightly. But she somehow heard the seriousness in it immediately, and she moved right into doctor's mood. Tell me more, she said. How would you describe it? How severe is it? What exactly is it? We both agreed that I should get it checked at some point, sooner rather than later. And I made a mental note that I wasn't far from A&E. In fact, it was on my way home. If this discomfort continued, I would just drive there, park the car, walk in. Simple, manageable, under control. That's what I thought. But then something changed, and it changed quickly. Tracy was about to move the conversation onto the reason she had wanted to speak to me in the first place. And I realized I couldn't concentrate. I could hear her voice, but I couldn't process it properly. My brain was no longer keeping up. My thoughts were becoming foggy. Something inside me knew, before I fully said the words, that this was no longer a check it later situation. I said, Trace, this is not right. I need to pull over. And in that moment, everything shifted. Her voice changed. Urgent now. Panicked. Oh my God, Carol, pull over. I'll call an ambulance. Where are you? What's your car registration number? But I couldn't focus enough to tell her. That may sound unbelievable to someone listening. How can a person know their own registration number and not be able to say it? But when the brain begins to struggle under physiological stress, the simplest things can suddenly feel impossible. So, instead, I said something along the lines of, it's a BMW X5, it's a big car, they won't miss it. I remember turning into Raw Dykes Road. I remember trying to say that I could see Leicester City Football Club. I remember pulling over, mounting the pavement slightly, trying to park safely to get out of the flow of traffic. And by now, that discomfort had become pain, real pain, central chest pain. I started sweating. I felt clammy, dizzy, disoriented, and I remember thinking, I need some air, fresh air. But even lowering the car window suddenly became a task. The kind of task you shouldn't have to think about. And yet I had to think about it. Which button? How do I do this? Why can't I do something so simple? Eventually I managed. I looked out of the window and saw people walking past, completely unaware, going about their day. And I gave a weak little wave. The kind of wave that carries more meaning than movement. A wave that says, please notice me. A wave that says, I don't think I'm okay. A wave that says, I don't want to be alone right now. There is something about a medical emergency that strips life back to what matters very quickly. In those moments, titles mean very little. Efficiency means very little. Images mean very little. What matters is breath, help, presence, company, human nearness. And I remember thinking, very briefly, that it would be so sad to die alone. But that thought was immediately rebuked, because even in the middle of fear, I knew this much. I was not alone. God was with me. And somehow, in the midst of all that confusion, there was a strange undercurrent of assurance. Not calm exactly, not comfort in the usual sense, but presence. And the phone rang. It was Simon. Tracy had called him. His voice came through controlled, but I knew him well enough to hear the underlying anxiety. He said, Carol, are you okay? I'm on my way. Don't panic. Cough as hard as you can. Keep coughing. That time, there had been all sorts of circulating messages about coughing during a heart attack. Does anyone remember that? Something to talk about later. But in that moment, whether such an action was fully evidence-based or not was not my priority. Survival was. So I coughed. I coughed and prayed. I coughed and I called on Jesus. I coughed and I thought of my boys, my 2 sons, my princes. And I remember that peculiar kind of maternal love that rised in me in a moment of danger, not soft and sentimental, but fierce. I thought of them, and I knew with great clarity that I was not ready to leave them. By this point, I was convinced I was having a heart attack. And perhaps the strangest part of all of this was that even as a doctor, even with the symptoms unfolding, even with that inner knowing, part of me still couldn't quite believe it. Because in my mind, heart attacks belonged to a category, a type, a profile. Older, male, overweight, diabetic, smoker, heavy drinker. Not me. Not the woman who had pushed through life, trusting God all the way. Not the woman who had worked, prayed, fasted, endured, survived. Not me. And this is one of the most dangerous myths we carry. That serious illness belongs to other people. That collapse belongs to other people. That warning signs are for other people until suddenly, one day, they are yours. I dialed 999 myself as well. Better 2 calls than one, I thought. I told the call handler I was a doctor. I told her it was my heart. I told her I felt I might collapse. By then, my voice was barely audible. She stayed on the phone with me until the ambulance arrived. And when they did arrive, I have to be honest, it was not quite the dramatic, rapid, urgent rescue my mind had imagined. In my disoriented state, everything felt too slow, too measured, too unconvinced. And perhaps part of that was because I was both patient and doctor at the same time. I was living the emergency and mentally evaluating the response. This is a difficult place to be. Because knowledge can help you, but it can also intensify the experience. Too much to be fully ignorant and yet not enough to control what is happening to your own body in that moment. Furthermore, they got me to walk to the ambulance. This is not what you do with a patient who is having a heart attack. Am I losing my mind? In the ambulance, my ECG at that stage did not show the classic picture clinicians expect with a major heart attack. And because I was a relatively young woman with no obvious risk factors, I do believe that shaped how my case was interpreted. They did err on the side of caution and started the treatment protocol for a case of acute coronary syndrome. Hence, I was given aspirin to chew, GTN spray under my tongue, morphine for my pain, medication for my nausea. But there was still this lingering sense that I was not being fully believed. That the urgency I felt in my own body was not matching the urgency around me. After all, the paramedic had said to me when I told him I thought I was having a heart attack, "You doctors always think the worst." And that was a deeply unsettling experience, especially when you know your body, especially when you know medicine, especially when something inside you is saying, this is serious. By the time they transferred me to A&E, I had some relief from the pain because of the morphine, but I was still extremely unwell. And what followed was one of the most sobering parts of the whole experience. The waiting, the uncertainty, the sense of being in a system that was moving but not quickly enough. My troponin level, the blood marker that indicates damage to the heart muscle, came back raised, very raised, then higher still. My ECG began to show evolving changes. Something was happening to my heart, and yet there were delays, and more delays. And for a long stretch of time, I remained in a space between what I knew and what had not yet been fully acted upon. Now, I want to say this carefully. My purpose is not to blame, not to attack individuals. The NHS is full of good people working under extraordinary pressure. And I know that, not only as a patient, but as someone who has served within it. But I would not be truthful if I did not say that this experience exposed something painful to me. How easily people can be misread. How easily women in particular can be underestimated in cardiac events. How easily a person can be talking sense about their own body and still not be fully heard. How easily a person can be talking sense about their own body and still not be fully heard. That hurts me, not only physically, but emotionally. because I'd spent years caring for those in the same system, explaining, reassuring, staying late, tying up loose ends, trying to lead patients safe. And in that moment, when I was vulnerable, frightened, and literally leaking evidence of heart muscle damage in my bloodstream, I needed someone to look me in the eyes and say, "We see you. We see what is happening. We believe you. We're acting." Eventually, 14 hours later, I was transferred to the specialist hospital in the city for heart and lung problems, Glenfield Hospital. By then, I had been in this unfolding crisis for far too long. There, things became clearer, more decisive. I was informed that I had indeed suffered a myocardial infarction, a heart attack. It was a STEMI, the worst type, and even later that morning, I was taken to the cardiac catheter laboratory for an angiogram. The test confirmed what my body had known long before some doctors around me were ready to say it. One of my major coronary arteries, the left anterior descending artery, LAD for short, was totally blocked. This was not mild, not imagined, not anxiety, not indigestion. A major artery completely blocked, and I needed a stent urgently. So this was it, widowmaker artery. You think it happens to someone else? How many times I've heard that as a medical student, as a junior doctor, widowmaker artery. Not someone else. Not some headline, not some stranger. That day, it was me. The doctor, the woman, the mother, the believer. The one needing revascularization to save her heart. A stent was inserted, blood flow restored. Thank God. No further chest pain. But surviving a heart attack and escaping without consequence, not the same thing. The next day's scan showed severe damage. My ejection fraction was 18%. My heart's pumping function severely affected. This wasn't a scare. This was heart failure. To go from seeing yourself as well, strong, active, capable, to suddenly being told that the heart you assumed was carrying you effortlessly through life had been severely injured. That's grief. There's grief in that. Because you're not only recovering from the event, you're trying to make sense of a new reality. New medications, new fears, new limits, new questions. Who am I now? What does my future look like? Can my heart recover? Why did God allow this? And perhaps that's where the deepest part of this story lives. Not in the artery or in the stent or in the hospital timeline, but in the revelation, the truth I could no longer outrun. I had been carrying more than I realized. My body had absorbed more than I acknowledged. I had mistaken resilience for invincibility. And that's a mistake many of us make. especially those of us known for being strong, the dependable ones, the ones who hold families together, who lead, serve, push through. The world praises strength. But if we're not careful, we begin to worship it too. And then we stop listening to tiredness, to pain, to warning signs. We override, we persevere. Until one day the body says, no more. I'm not saying every busy person will have a heart attack. I'm saying this: your body is not separate from your life. How you live matters. How you carry pressure matters. How long you ignore your needs matters. When we refuse to listen to quiet signals, we may be forced to hear louder ones. If you're the one everyone calls, the one everyone depends on, the one who says, I'm fine, I'll rest later when this season passes, please hear me. Do not wait for your body to shout. Do not mistake productivity for health. Do not assume that because you're functioning, you're flourishing. Spirit over status, purpose over pressure, health over hustle. Not because ambition is wrong, but because none of it matters if you lose yourself in the process. What does it profit a person to gain so much? And I add, and damage the vessel carrying it all. My heart attack changed me because it clarified something. Success without health is fragile. Strength without rest is vulnerable. And survival should not be the standard by which we measure a life. Wholeness should. So here's what I want you to hear, not just as a doctor, but as a woman who learned this in her own body. Please listen. Listen to your body. Listen to the strain beneath the smile. Listen to the fatigue beneath the productivity. And especially if you're a woman, know this. A heart attack may not look the way you expect. It may be subtle. It may be misread. Do not minimize it yourself. If something feels wrong, get help and keep advocating until you're heard. My story didn't end in that car. It didn't end in A&E or on the catheter table. I thank God for that. I'm still here, still speaking, still learning. And if my story causes even one person to pause, to speak, to seek help later, to stop glorifying depletion, then this pain will not have been wasted. So here's my challenge. What is your body trying to tell you today? What have you normalized that isn't normal? What warning sign have you renamed? Just stress or just this season? Take the checkup, make the call, set the boundary. Choose differently because you matter. Your health matters. And the people who love you, they need more than your output. They need you. Whole, present, alive. Next time, Esther ignored the warning signs for weeks. Chest discomfort, exhaustion, nausea. She was too busy to stop. She kept going. Through a business trip, through a fitness class in New York, right through a heart attack. Thank you for listening to The Heart of the Matter with Dr. Carol. Remember, your voice matters. and your story has purpose for such a time as this.